all probably sitting around bored, right? So it's going to give you a virtual tour of the part of the Dan Gable National Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum. You walk in the door, and you got the Greg Hatcher lobby. Greg Hatcher, very prominent person in wrestling who has started over, 60-plus high school programs, mats, uniforms, and so forth, and multiple college programs. Very prominent in the state of Arkansas, but has helped wrestling all through different phases of wrestling. So, but this is our lobby. We got Kurt Angle here, obviously. We got, NCAA champion, world champion, national champion, or Olympic champion. Jamil Byers, world Greco champion. Helen Maroulis, our first gold medalist in the Olympic Games for our women, 2016. And of course, you got this guy, Dan Gable, probably the most famous person in our sport. He's from Waterloo. That's where we're at right here, and one of the most popular people in athletics, period, in our state. So we're at the Dan Gable Wrestling Hall of Fame. So usually we come in and you know somebody. You come over to one of our kiosks here, and we'll just pick out a guy. Here's Mark Mesnick, who's really a great doctor in our state, who wrestled for Gable when he first got there at Iowa. And dude, I'm telling you, if you have someone in wrestling that gets hurt and you want somebody that knows wrestling, Dr. Mark Mesnick's one of the guys in Iowa City. So anyway, people come in and they know somebody, no matter what state it is. You pick out your state. Maybe it's, we have people from Oregon. They pick Oregon. They find somebody they know. They take a picture with them, send it to them. So it's a pretty cool scenario. Anyway, so as we start to go, one of the prominent people in the museum is Bobby Douglas. Bobby Douglas, famous Olympian, 64 and 68, won this national title as a coach, Arizona State, and then went on to Iowa State, was three-time runner-up, Cale Sanderson and many others, Joe Heskett and so forth. But Bobby, we had a Bobby Douglas night, appreciation night, last November. Bobby was the first one to sign his image in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame Dan Gable Museum, and we had a great night. Cale Sanderson was here, Zeke Jones, Ben Peterson, Dan Gable. We had, I could go on, but that was a cool night. So Bobby, if you're watching, you're the man. Here's Bobby looking cool right here too, man. Bobby looking sweet right there. But Bobby inspired a lot of people. Over here we got Bruce Bumgardner, obviously. Bruce Bumgardner, 9 world medals, man. 5 gold. Crazy. One of the, I think it was in 4 different Olympic games. Maybe it was 5. I'll have to look it up. But Bruce Bumgardner, one of the best heavyweights in history of all wrestling, period. All right, here's a picture a lot of people like to check out because they noticed Garth Brooks in there. Garth Brooks went to Oklahoma State, was friends with a number of people there, including the Smith family. So, but here's obviously some famous, very accomplished people in our country, from Kevin Jackson, Dennis Hall, Greco, Bruce Bumgardner, Kurt Angle, Terry Brands, and so forth. And Garth Brooks was the honorary team captain of our '96 Olympic team as well. And speaking of Terry Brands, Terry has let the museum display his gold medals, 93 and 95 world champions. Dude, that guy was a bad man, right? But not often do you get to see those, so we'll check those out. And here we got one wall dedicated to Glenn Brand Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's the Gable Museum, really our Hall of Fame every year, where we honor different people. Here's a kiosk of our Hall of Fame. Last year, the Waverly Shell Rock High School wrestling team got the team award. The best team in history of Iowa high school wrestling. Set the all-time record. Pretty cool picture of those guys. And then you look at, man, we had some studs here. Brent Metcalf, couple-time national champ at Iowa. Now he's coaching at Iowa State. And then a guy like a legendary guy, Steve Mocco, national champ Iowa and Oklahoma State. That's pretty unique right there. But these guys did a great job talking about their career. Gene Doyle, who was a great coach at Cedar Falls High School, a local Iowa guy, that a lot of people really, he inspired a lot of people. And Gene was honored as well. Try to keep up locally. in the state of Iowa and even in our own community. And in the state of Iowa, our small school teams that have been the most prominent are Lisbon and Don Bosco. And played out again this year. They wrestled 3 times. Lisbon won the state duels, and Don Bosco won the traditional state tournament. And man, some of their battles have been epic, and I think they will continue to do so. Brad Smith, who's won the most state titles in Iowa, is the coach of Lisbon, a former national champion at Iowa. And Tom Hogan is the head national champion, my first national champion at Wartburg, and he is the head coach at Don Bosco. Here we got Dan Hodge. Dan Hodge was a Oklahoma wrestler, a 3-time national champion, pinned all 3 of his final opponents. There are only 1 or 2 people that have ever done that. And went on to another professional boxing and wrestling career. But the Hodge Trophy, I mean, we're named our most prestigious. It's like the Heisman in football. The Hodge Trophy is named after Dan Hodge, and the only amateur wrestler to ever make the cover of Sports Illustrated. Okay, this is kind of the history, a little history lane here. When we start out talking about the presidents, I think we've had 14 presidents that have wrestled. 2 most famous are George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln only lost 1 match in 100 or so he was probably the best one, but that's pretty cool that we got some leadership there. Iowa was the first high school state championship held 1921. So next year we're 100 years in. Iowa was the first one. I know Oklahoma was 1922. And so there we go. A pioneer for our state was a guy named Frank Gotch, Humboldt, Iowa. He wrestled in the biggest crowd in history at the time, 1911, 33,000 people at Kaminsky Park in Chicago. And you had to win in 2 straight falls or submit them back then. That match lasted over an hour. It's pretty crazy. But he was a pioneer for our state. Here you got the 1947 Cornell College wrestling team. There was 3 Waterloo guys in here. 1947, we're talking 73 years ago. And a few months ago, the college actually dropped off the mat that they used, the horsehair mat that they used back then. And when we get to our learning center, I'll show you what that mat looks like back in the day. Over here we got Harold DeMarsh, 115 pounds. This guy should be famous. He's the first national champion in history. 1928, the first national championship tournament that we had in Ames, Iowa. 115-pounder. Harold DeMarsh. Everybody heard of Gallagher Hall. This is Ed Gallagher right here at Oklahoma State. It used to be called Oklahoma A&M. Ed won, and his teams won 11 of the first 13 NCAA championships. Man, pretty crazy. This is a good story. Simon Roberts, 1954, he was the first African-American to win a high school state champion in the state of Iowa. 3 years later, he was the first African-American to win a national championship for the University of Iowa. And he had the same opponent in both, high school and college. A lot of people probably maybe watching that was at this event, November 14th, 2015, the biggest crowd in history, 42,287 fans at Kinnick Stadium, Oklahoma State versus Iowa. Right now, we were planning on breaking that record this weekend, right, at the Minneapolis and NCAA, but what a great day that was, and it was in the 50s. We were pretty fortunate. The weather held up, and we had a great meet. This is the Dan Gable circle here, his high school, his college, his collegiate world championships and so forth, and coaching. Here you got a couple items that people like to check out. His Olympic shoes, which have no markings on them. And Dan had told us, hey man, they're Russian shoes. He bought a number of pairs when he was in Russia because they gripped the mats better back then. And but they didn't last a long time. And you can see these got some wear on them, but that was his shoes. Tbilisi tournament in Russia, probably the toughest tournament in the world, if not the toughest, one of the toughest. And he was OW of that tournament. And part of the OW award was a dagger right here. And so pretty crazy. But yeah, that was, obviously Dan was a three-time state champion in high school in Iowa, West Waterloo, famous legendary coach Bob Siddons, and then went to Iowa State with Harold Nichols, Les Anderson, and won all his matches, 2 national titles until the last one. We all know that story. But then he went to Iowa to coach. And this is a pretty dang crazy, to sum up the coaching career right here. Dan was at Iowa for 21 years, won 15 national titles in 21 years. I don't know, that's got to be, is that the best coaching of any sport? I don't know. Yeah, it's amazing. 21 years, 15 national titles, 45 individual national champions and so forth, finalists. This all breaks it down. He was 98-1 in Carver. Penn State was the only loss. People want to know who the only loss was. This one stands out, maybe even the most. Had 106 Big Ten champs. All the other schools put together had 104. So that's a pretty dominant scenario right there, man. 21 years at Iowa, 21 straight Big Ten championships. Boom. Okay. John Smith was the second one to sign his image during the late January when they came to wrestle Northern Iowa. John came over and signed the wall. Awesome day, man. He was talked about how history has inspired his career. 6-time world champion, 4 worlds and 2 Olympics in a row, 6 in a row. It's amazing. No one's done that. And but he was Olympic champ 88 and 92, and obviously now they're still the head coach at Northern Iowa, or at Oklahoma State. Okay. Here's the best looking guy in here. I'm not going to spend time, but that's me at 21. Crazy. Look at that, head of hair and so forth. Another Waterloo guy, Chuck Yagla. 2-time national champion, Australian wrestler for Coach Gable at Iowa, and then made the 1980 Olympic team, and the team that didn't get to go. And I'm sure if you pay attention to social media, Chuck's been on there lately a couple times, but you know, and kind of gets back to what we're going through right now with no NCAA championships, but different reasons. Things going on in here, but let's just go on in here quick. This is the Learning Center. You can kind of see Resolite did a great job with this. They helped us out tremendously. And I love the imaging and everything. Stephen Neal, Helen Maroulis, and so forth, all the way down the line. In the middle, you got Kenny Mundy and Dave Schultz. What a great story that was. Tom and Terry Brands, so forth. Henry Cejudo up top up here, some of my favorite guys. Henry, one of the youngest Olympic gold medalists, he was 21. Dan Gable, Jordan Burroughs, who's trendsetter for our sport, man, that guy's the man. And Adeline Gray, who's going for her 6th world championship this year, so this is pretty cool. We have clubs in here, we have colleges that come in and work out. I mean, it's a great space for us. We have events in here, we'll roll up the mats. But we obviously have another key thing in here. If you know Gable, myself included, sauna's key. Sauna's key. And here we are, man. We get this thing gets a lot of use just because saunas are great, and just another thing that is here in the Gable Museum Learning Center. We're celebrating our women in the Dan Gable Museum because, man, we're good. Our women are good. And Patricia Miranda was one of the first. She was our first Olympic medalist, 2004 in Greece. And she had also placed in 3 other world championships. And she was also at Stanford and actually was the second woman to win against a male opponent in NCAA competition. So she was a great one for us and a great example for many of our women that's come since her. Some of our other ladies, Victoria Anthony, images in our wrestling room. Carissa Chung, we have up here, her singlet and so forth. Obviously Adeline Gray and so forth. So there's going to be more coming because we're just getting better and better on our women's side too. Over here we got, obviously, we got to have Cale Sanderson in here, and we're privileged to have a lot of his stuff in here. This is a signed singlet from Cale from his Iowa State days. Obviously, 159-0, 4 national titles, 4 outstanding wrestlers awards. Pretty crazy. And as a result, there's obviously bobbleheads. There's Wheaties box. There's a Wheaties box with Cale's signature there. Those were very popular. There's a nice ASICS autographed image of Cale winning his title. Even had Hy-Vee Campbell chunky soups and so forth. But Cale was here during the Bobby Douglas celebration. It was great. And he was very open to people and signing and taking pictures and so forth. Over here we got Nate Carr's Iowa State robe. And the robes, man, I don't know if Coach Dresser is going to bring them back, but I thought they were cool. I thought they were cool. But this is Nate's. Nate's obviously a 3-time NCAA champion for the Cyclones. One of the favorites of all time for many people, including me, is Dave Schultz. And Dave's world champ, Olympic champ in 1984. Up here we got his freestyle 163-pound 86 National Open championship and all kinds of different medals and so forth. Leroy Neiman is painting of Dave. Dave and Nancy and the kids and Kenny Mundy, carrying Kenny Mundy after he won his championship, Olympic championship and so forth. This is Dave's jacket from the '84 Olympics where Dave won, and also Mark won, his brother won. We actually had 7 gold medals in '84 in the LA Times. And this is, we got a lot of cool stuff. This is Dave as a high school kid, and you notice Chuck Yagla, who's already won a national title, maybe 2 titles at that time. Dave beat him as a high school kid, which is, I mean, I think a lot of people found out that, holy cow, who is this guy? There's Dave with President Reagan, Nancy and President Reagan and so forth. So anyway, we got all kinds of stuff on Dave, and like I said, one of the favorite people in our history in wrestling. Come over here a little bit. You got Bill Smith, who was 1952 Olympic gold medalist, Northern Iowa. Actually, they're only Olympic gold medals in any sport, but Bill Smith was awesome. We just lost him a couple years ago. And a lot of people like to ask me what this is. This is the old writing time clock, the old college writing time clock, either green or red. If you were on top, they'd click the button back here and it'd go one way or the other. And that's how we used to keep track back in the day. To the theater room. This is one of my favorite spots. Theater room comes in. You got right now we got Bill Cole wrestling. Bill Cole. This is 1948 national finals. Bill Cole was legendary. Not only in Northern Iowa, he was one of the best guys in the era back then. Went to World War II, stormed the beach in Normandy, all that stuff, and then came back and wrestled, set all kinds of records, and then coached at Northern Iowa and Penn State. And I know Rob right now, his son, is coaching at Cornell University, doing an unbelievable job. But, you know, up here you go. You got, this is what it looked like back in the day, 1948. There's one of the horsehair mats with a cover over it, our head table, plywood, and so forth. Man, we've come a long ways. But you know what? Wrestling fundamentals are still wrestling fundamentals. When college teams come in here, we show some of this, some of these different matches, and they realize, wow, how cool is this that you got to see? And here you go, Bill. Check this body lock. Boom. You see the coaches. McCuskey, legendary coach at the time, young Coach McCuskey there, and just a lot of history you can learn just by watching what's come before you. You know, a lot of our young people really like to measure up, see how they measure up. Wrestling's for everybody, man, everybody. And so here you got some of the famous guys. Ed Ruth, multiple-time national champ for Penn State. This guy's legendary, Chris Taylor. He was 6'5", 440 pounds. Back in the day, we didn't have that weight limit. Now it's 285, right? But this guy was a great athlete as well. He was really good. Junior college national champ, 2-time national champ for Iowa State, and so forth. And then this guy, Bobby Weaver, 105 pounds. Back in the day, Olympic champ, 84. So, and then over here we got some of our women. Leigh Janes, Carissa Chung, Adeline Gray, Iris Smith. and we got little girls coming up and measuring and taking their pictures, and it's awesome. It's awesome. And hey, here's a famous guy, Gray Simons, one of the best ever. Gray Simons, Lock Haven, 3-time national champ back in the day. And then we got, we got Adeline Gray up here. We got Sanderson, Jamil Byers, the Hayeswinkle family represented here. So, and hey, well, maybe we'll end it here at our famous statue dedicated to the Sorensen Strong scenario. Brandon Sorensen, he grew up 15 miles from here, Denver, Iowa, Cedar Falls, Denver, Iowa. So, but obviously the Sorensen Strong push to help him, and I hope he's doing well. 4-time All-American for the 4-time state champion in Iowa, 4-time All-American for the University of Iowa. Sorensen Strong.